So I've been following a carnivore lifestyle for 5.5 years now, and I landed on carnivore because I was basically in desperation mode. I had had my health completely destroyed, and I was on the brink of death for over a year. And I will say that after being on a carnivore diet for 5.5 years, I absolutely love plants. Welcome to Apex, my name's Jacob, and in this video I'm going to explain that why, after 5.5 years on a carnivore diet, I still continue to include plants in my routine, why I never cut them out, and how they played a fundamental role in me being able to fully heal and recover from all the crazy illnesses that I was suffering from back in 2017. So if you're familiar with the carnivore community and the carnivore lifestyle, you'll know that plants have been demonized in a very large way, which a lot of people would argue is for good reason, because there are a lot of drawbacks when it comes to plants and consuming them as a source of nutrition. Because they do contain phytotoxins, they have plant defense chemicals that essentially make them somewhat problematic for certain people. And I would actually argue that it probably makes them problematic for a large majority of the population. Because when you consume these plants, these defense chemicals, they can create low-grade inflammation, they can create irritation of the gut, they can limit and prohibit the absorption of certain nutrients, vitamins and minerals. They can lead to a lot of gut-related problems, and the fiber in plants can be problematic for some people as well. And another big issue with modern plants is that they're also sprayed with a lot of very harsh chemicals, antibiologics, which are things like pesticides and herbicides. Modern plants are also grown in depleted soil because most of them come from monoculture, and they're notorious for spraying synthetic fertilizers on that soil so that the plants will grow. And that obviously can be very problematic because that stuff does not necessarily get washed off of the plants before we consume them, and they uptake some of the chemicals themselves. And that again can be very, very problematic in terms of health. So with all that said, it's pretty easy to see why plants have been demonized and have kind of gotten a bad rap from the carnivore community. But as I mentioned, as a 5-year carnivore myself, and having been a part of this community and a part of this lifestyle for quite a while, I do absolutely love plants, and I think they can play a very important role in optimizing our health if they're used in the right way. So let me just start off by saying what I don't think plants should be used for. I don't think plants, and this includes things like leafy greens, grains, fruits, and most vegetables, with fruits being the least bad of all the ones I just mentioned, I don't think they should be the center of our diet. My belief, like many others, is that the food pyramid is essentially flipped upside down. So meat should be the base of the diet, and then on top of that would be things like fruits, and then vegetables if you want to include them, with vegetables being things like squash, cucumbers, and potatoes, staying away from leafy greens, staying away from nightshades, and maybe even most importantly is staying away from grains. So it should be pretty clear that the reason I love plants is not because they're a great source of nutrition. The reason I love plants are medicine, and that is what I fully believe plants were put on this earth for. I do not believe they should be used as a primary source of nutrition. And when you look back throughout all of history, you will see, even written in some of the most historical, world-renowned documents, that plants have been used as medicine since the dawn of time. Now, for me personally, my background is Cherokee Indian, and I've studied quite a bit into Native American culture and their healing practices. And Native Americans were phenomenal healers, and plants played a very fundamental role in their healing practices. And they also played a very fundamental role in my healing practices, because when I got sick, I was riddled with a plethora of chronic conditions, and there are a few of those conditions that would not resolve on their own just by simply adopting a carnivore diet. The first condition that did not fully heal until I started incorporating plants into my routine is candida. So a very big issue I had when I got sick is that I had candida overgrowth. And if you've never experienced that, that is an absolutely horrible thing. And it essentially led to me getting fungal infections. It led to me getting oral thrush. I had gut dysbiosis, which is basically an overgrowth of bad bacteria in the gut. It led to me getting a lot of urinary tract infections, which is not a fun thing to have. It led to the malabsorption of vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients, which is also not a good scenario. It was likely a big reason why I developed a leaky gut and had such horrible gut problems, as well as autoimmune conditions and allergies, and the list goes on and on and on. Candida can have a lot of really negative impacts on your health. And if you've ever had candida overgrowth, you'll know that it is very, very hard to get that back under control. And a lot of that starts with healing the gut. But by simply healing the gut, sometimes that is not enough, because what will happen is that if you adopt, like, let's say a low FODMAP diet, which is usually what's recommended for candida overgrowth, then you're essentially starving off the candida's food supply, and the candida will kind of go dormant for a while. But what happens is that it burrows deeper into your gut lining and deeper into your intestines. And then the moment that you get away from that low FODMAP, low carb diet, that candida rebounds pretty much overnight, and it proliferates in the gut, and you wind up with all the same problems that you started off with. And that's exactly what happened to me. A low FODMAP diet, which I did adopt for a period of time, did not resolve that issue. And even after going keto for around 6 months, I still had this problem. And then moving from keto to carnivore, the candida never fully resolved. And all of this occurred over the span of over a year, because again, I was keto for 6 months. I did low FODMAP for, I don't know, a couple months before that. And then when I started carnivore, I didn't really see that much improvement in terms of candida. So what I ended up doing was supplementing with plants, with herbs and natural medicines to kill off the candida, to cleanse and detox my body, and to get all that bad stuff out of my system. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that had I not done that, because I've also helped numerous people do the same thing that have had the same exact problem, it would not have resolved on its own. These can be lingering and very persistent problems that need additional support in order to fully heal and recover from. And from my experience, that is 100% the case with candida. Another condition I was dealing with that goes hand in hand with candida and leaky gut and gut dysbiosis was that through cleansing candida, I also found out I had parasites, which is something that when it comes to our dogs, we think about that all the time. Our dogs are kind of notorious for having worms. We give them worm medication to get rid of that stuff, but we don't think about that for ourselves. And it's a fringe topic that nobody wants to talk about. But the fact of the matter is, the majority of the population has some form of parasite living inside them. And if you're watching this video, that probably includes you, whether you know it or not. And maybe these things aren't even affecting you, but I can almost guarantee that you probably have some sort of parasite living inside you. If you've ever eaten seafood, especially raw, if you've ever eaten pork, especially undercooked, whether you knew it or not, then you probably have some form of parasite living in your gut. Now, it is possible to have these things living inside you and them to be somewhat under control and not really contributing to any kind of adverse health events. But that does not mean they are optimal to have them living inside you, because a parasite gets its name because it's taking something away from the host. It is robbing you of probably nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and other fuel, and it's probably also dumping toxins into your body. So parasites is another thing that weakens under a zero carb, low carb diet, but does not fully resolve. And the only real way to get rid of these parasites, just like with our dogs, is that we have to use an anti-parasitic. And that is how plants played a fundamental role in me overcoming parasites, because I used a natural anti-parasitic that is made from herbs and other plant products. And when I started using that, the things I saw come out in the toilet was absolute nightmare fuel. And since I had such great success using these plants as medicine, I've used them and incorporated them in my routine consistently for the 5.5 years I've been carnivore. Do I eat them as a source of nutrition? Absolutely not. But they have played and continue to play a very fundamental role in me being able to optimize my health. And it doesn't stop with the scenarios I just mentioned. That's just 2 uses for plants. There are hundreds and possibly even thousands of different ways plants can improve and optimize your overall health. So by subscribing to the carnivore lifestyle and adopting that mindset, it can be very, very easy to discount the positive impacts that plants can have on your overall health. But I think by completely vilifying plants, you could be doing yourself a huge disservice, and you could be counting out a very powerful and useful tool that could really be used to optimize your health. So if you're following a carnivore lifestyle and you're part of that community, it can be very, very easy to discount plants, to demonize them, and to believe that they're just not optimal for your health. But from my experience, that only tells part of the truth. So if you're looking to deepen your understanding of how plants could possibly benefit your health, there's a couple books that I've studied up on and a couple books I recommend. The first one is The Healing Secrets of Native Americans. And no, I've not been captured by big food and big plant, and I'm not being paid to say this. This is legitimately a freaking phenomenal book that has a ton of useful information, and it talks about all kinds of different herbal remedies and how to use them for various ailments. The second book I would recommend, and this one actually goes much more in depth and has a whole lot more information, is the Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine. All right, so this is number 2. This is another one I refer back to all the time because it has a ton of very useful information in here, and it has pictures of the plants as well as where the plants grow. So if you want to go out and forage your own, you can. And it not only has information about how to use all the different kinds of plants, but it also has information about how to prepare them as well. Between these 2 books, there are so many different uses for all these herbs and all these plants, and I would say that there's a natural remedy for just about any ailment you could possibly imagine in these books. Now, I'm not saying that this is a replacement for medicine. I'm not a doctor and I'm not qualified to give that kind of advice. But the way I think about this is that throughout all of history, we have relied on these types of herbal medicines to get us by. Only within the last 100 years have we had access to all of these petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. What up, baby? What up, honey? Be a star in the action. What up, honey? Waiting on me patiently. And I'm not saying that these herbal remedies are any better or any worse than the pharmaceutical alternatives. But what I am saying is that if you want to focus on natural remedies, then these herbs and these plants can be a very powerful tool in the healing process. And it's because of that and the amazing results I've seen from using these products that I love plants. And even as a 5.5-year carnivore, I continue to and will always continue to include those in my routine. If you're interested in purchasing these 2 books, they are on Amazon, and I'm going to put links in the description below to both of these. And since these herbs and these plants have had such a profound impact on my health, I will be doing many more videos in the future documenting exactly which plants I used and how and why I use them. So I hope you liked this, hope you got some value out of this, and if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, join the Apex Tribe, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace out.